is like I woke up from a dream. Cause they tried to check us, but we with the king. We walk in the light, boxed in, but we still kicking with champions taught in this fight. You sold your soul, it's gonna cost you a price. Cause you chillin' with snakes till you go and they bite. The truth like math, we multiply daily, but to the word we never add. Minus the bull, we get the last laugh. You counted us out, now we in our bag. We in the building, turn the world upside down. Now we moonwalking on the ceiling. Going H, seeing out appealing. We in the building, you in your feelings. We be the light in the darkness. We be the salt of the earth. We about to get it regardless. We out here putting in work. Cause we in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We be the light in the darkness. We be the salt of the earth. We about to get it regardless. We out here putting in work. Cause we in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We in the building.
We outside, gon' run and hide. Poppers everywhere, don't remember the tribes. Swallow your pride, accept you a loser. The day coming soon, we gon' face our accuser. We in the building, we in the fields, we in the trenches, we don't kneel. We gon' stand, y'all keep the gaze. We won't lands, ain't shit gon' change. How you gon' feel when the sky get dark and it ain't no solar eclipse? Just a bunch of chariots coming down, destroying every soul, put us on the ships. Raised in the truth by spiritual fathers. Faith alone, no miracle guide us. All we got is a word providers. If you ever looking for a sin, you can't find us.
We be the light in the darkness. We be the salt of the earth. We about to get it regardless. We out here putting in work. Cause we in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We be the light in the darkness. We be the salt of the earth. We about to get it regardless. We out here putting in work. Cause we in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We in this building like we be managing properties, like we was playing Monopoly. It ain't no stopping me. He just be panicking probably cause he's sorry. No apology cause I'm just different. Name on their way like a sumo. Authentic, these niggas be props like a kudos. They keeping the law but they fake call them pseudo. We pulling they card and say uno but we yelling skip 'em. Bring that heat for the cause, y'all leak with the gauze. Cause heat full of bark like a tree over dog. Get a leash for 'em all. We read that book. These seats like a pause. Be up, he down if you see what we saw. If you keeping the law then they heed to the fall. G-O-D got me grieving them all. We the light of the earth. We can see in the dark. We be the light in the darkness. We be the salt of the earth. We about to get it regardless. We out here putting in work. Cause we in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We be the light in the darkness. We be the salt of the earth. We about to get it regardless. We out here putting in work. Cause we in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We in the building.
We in this building like spiritual bricks. All white garments and we don't sell scripts. Warfare mighty and we taking no tips. Big shit popping in this spiritual whip. Seated this city and our feet got blisters. Either Microsoft like the Windows Vista. They go bow down when we walk through the street. Tell them lick the dust of our top G feet. Call Deacon Lava finna drop the hammer. Throw ink where they can't pick up these stands. We got the vision so put down your phone. Our power greater than infinity stones. Yeah, hit the Sabbath. Bishop. It's even to even. Them goals is gone.
All hands on deck. All hands on deck. Gotta fight for my respect. Get nothing else but my best. All hands on deck. Don't care about my stress. Give my all to ain't nothing left. All hands on deck. Myself to the test. From the east all the way to the west. All hands on deck. Can't settle for less until the day I fulfill my quest. All hands on deck.
IU to the IC. More than deep when we hit the sea. Going high low trying to get us free. Haters still talking, that's interesting. Truth got them in the fit of rage. Wisdom be my lifeguard. But if you drown the sea, you ain't getting saved. All motion got them all amazed. Clearly y'all just bored. Now y'all chasing titles, trying to ride our way. Might pull up any time of day. The Lord with us, he gon' make a way. Hate niggas never been this way, so they should have shit to say. Big Jew, yeah, we marching through. The Lord with us, it ain't hard to do. Many called, but the chose few. This kingship, bro, we supposed to rule. All hands on deck, bro, we at your neck. To our last breath, on your march, ready, set. All hands on deck.
Gotta fight for my respect. Give nothing else but I reminisce on how it felt. Just dealt a bad hand under the deck, they had us held up. Full steam ahead, they had us shipped and then they mailed us. I think our auction blocks.
All right, all praises. You got the trumpets back there? All right, let's send up the prayers. All right, men of Israel, blow trumpets. Trumpets down. The book of Psalms, chapter 25. Unto thee, O Lord, do I lift up my soul. O my God, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed. Let not my enemies triumph over me. Yea, let none that wait on thee be ashamed. Let them be ashamed which transgress without cause. Show me thy ways, O Lord. Teach me thy path. Lead me in thy truth, and teach me, for thou art God of my salvation. And thee do I wait all the day. Remember, O Lord, thy tender mercy and thy loving kindness, for they have been ever of old. Remember not my sins of my youth, nor my transgressions, according to thy mercies. Remember thou me for thy goodness' sake, O Lord. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore I will teach sinners thy way. The meek will be guided in judgment. The meek will he teach his ways. All the paths of the Lord have mercy and truth, and such as keep his covenant and his testimonies. For thy sake, O Lord, pardon my iniquities, for it is great. What man is he that feareth the Lord? He shall teach in the way that he shall choose. His soul shall dwell at ease. His seed shall inherit the earth. The secrets of the Lord is with him that feareth him, and he will show his covenant. My eyes are ever towards the Lord, for he will pluck my feet out of the net. Turn thee unto me, and have mercy upon me, for I am desolate and afflicted. The troubles of my heart are enlarged. Oh, bring thou me out of my distress. Look upon my affliction and pain, and forgive all my sins. Consider my enemies, for they are many. They hate me with a cruel hatred. Oh, keep my soul and deliver me. Let me not be ashamed, for I put my trust in thee. Let integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait on thee. Redeem Israel, O God, out of all his troubles. Father God of all, we come before you in the name of your Son, asking for strength, mercy, and guidance, asking that you send your holy angels to encamp about your saints. Be with those that are sick and afflicted. Guide them with your marvelous light, and raise up wisdom that it may be the most powerful weapon that we use to take down our enemies that persecute us. Judge the heathens that persistently persecute us, Lord, and have no mercy on them, Lord, but have mercy on your chosen who you have called since the beginning. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray and thank you. Amen. All praises, all praises. All praise to the Most High.
We in this building.
We in this building. All praises. IUIC daily bread in full effect. All praises. Let me put this off to the side here. All praises to the Most High God. I'm Master Sampson, and this is daily bread. We back. All praise to the Most High God. Oh, praises. To my right, I got my reader in the flesh.
Officer Aharon.
Officer Aharon. He came in here to read today. All praise to the Most High God. And I got how many brothers back there? We got one brother who was in the spirit of the Lord for IT. Brother Ithiel's, Officer Ithiel, to be exact. And we come here, and we thank the Lord. We're gracious that he put the spirit in us this morning to get up to bring out this word. All praises to the Most High God.
That's right.
Today's class, I don't know, can you put on the chat I want to say shalom to the chat, man. You know, put up the chat. But today's class is entitled The Crack Era Weaponized Witchcraft. Weaponized Witchcraft. If you was tuned in yesterday, Bishop had a phenomenal class that the white man, who is the devil, they pulled it down. They pulled Bishop's class down from off YouTube. He had a phenomenal class going into prophecies, going into understandings you never heard before. All praise to the Most High God. What's going on, brothers and sisters? In the chat. You know? If you in the chat and you can hear the sound of my voice, and you hearing about them pulling down Bishop class, put the white man is the devil in the chat. Put the white man is the devil in the chat. You know what I'm saying? That was a phenomenal class. Lord's will, we get it back up soon because Bishop was going in. So I'm going to go to one scripture that Bishop went to last night, which, you know, when he broke that thing down, I said, man, the Bishop got the Spirit of the Lord on him for real. Let's go to Nahum. First, Nahum 3. Let's go there. And you're going to start at verse 1. Let's start at verse 1. Come on. So today's class was inspired by a book that I was reading. The book, let me get the title of it. It's called When Crack Was King. A People's History of a Misunderstood Era by a brother named Donovan X. Ramses. It was a good book. We're going to put it up later. But it inspired me to write this class because many of us, especially you brothers over 30, you over 40 brothers, we grew up in this crack era. And we don't really realize, there go the book on the screen right now, we don't really realize how much this era played a role in destroying how we think, destroying how our neighborhoods run today. A lot of our neighborhoods today is still impacted by the things that the government did to us in the crack era. It was a mass social experiment. We was the guinea pigs to the white man's science, which the Bible calls witchcraft. But we're going to go into that. Read Nahum 3 and 1. Let's read that.
Nahum chapter 3 and verse 1.
Come on.
Woe to the bloody city. It is all full of lies and robbery.
So the Bible says, woe to the bloody city. That bloody city is America. If you should have been tuned in last night, Bishop broke down in detail proving that this bloody city is America. Yes, we know it's talking about Assyria, but it's also going into America. Jump down to verse 4.
Nahum chapter 3 and verse 4.
Come on.
Because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts.
The mistress of what?
Of witchcrafts. That selleth nations through her whoredoms.
So this what did they call it? Well-favored harlot. This well-favored harlot is America. And it says through the multitude of her witchcrafts. A lot of times when we think about witchcraft, because of things like Halloween and because of things like Hollywood, whenever we think about witchcraft, we think about a woman with a fat nose, with a wart on it, flying broomsticks, green skin, big cauldrons, pots, mixing potions. But indeed, the witchcraft that is referring to is the scientific advancements that the white man has made. His science is the witchcraft that is referring to. His science is what he used to war against nations and against our people. He used this technology that he creates to create things like nuclear weapons. He comes, not only nuclear weapons, he creates things such as drugs, to war against the minds of our people, because a lot of our people caught up in drugs. They caught up in that lifestyle. They caught up and they get so high that they never come back. They never come back down. But we're going to go into a lot of that today. So, but let's go to 1 Peter 2:11. Because a lot of brothers and sisters may have came out of this lifestyle in which where they was involved in drugs, drug abuse. It could have been marijuana, weed, LSD. What else they got out here nowadays? Promethazine. A lot of different drugs that they got out here nowadays that a lot of our people are involved in. And they don't realize that they are in a spiritual war. Read that what you got.
1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 11.
Come on.
Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts.
Fleshly lust. The lust is that covetous desire for evil things. It could be such as things as fornication. That could be your fleshly lust. But for today's class, we're dealing with the drug era, the crack era. That thing was devastating to a lot of our people, and it affected us in a vile way. That witchcraft, that science that Esau created. Read that again.
Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts.
Abstain from fleshly lusts. The reason why it was so vital for the white man to push these drugs into our neighborhood is because Philemon 1:14. Let's read that. Philemon 1:14. It was a vital thing for him to push this in our neighborhoods because right before the crack era, the heroin era, we had things such as we had men such as the Black Panthers. Men and sisters stood up for our people and to defend us from police brutality. We had movements sparking up all over the world of what we call today black consciousness, where black people was banding together and becoming one and trying to get a sense of identity. But what did the white man do? He said, we must attack the minds of the people. We must, and the way they did that was through drugs. How did they do it? Read what you got. Why did they do it? Read.
Philemon, verse 14. But without thy mind would I do nothing.
Come on.
That thy benefit should not be as it were of necessity.
So it says, without thy mind, thy could do nothing. Like there's another scripture in Proverbs that says, as the mind thinketh, so is he. That was a vital reason that the white man attacked the minds of our people. Because if he can infiltrate our minds, he can make us be a shadow of what we're supposed to be. Not even a fraction of what we're supposed to be as the real Jews. The reason he attacked us with this marijuana, with this crack, with these different drugs is because he wanted to destroy our minds. Because that's what he does with his witchcraft. We're going to go deep into it. We're going to prove, because somebody thinking, nah, I don't think drugs are witchcraft. For y'all who think that, you may want to check out, I did a Daily Bread maybe a month ago. It was called the FDA, Food and Drug Addiction, showing how that a lot of these food companies and these processed food companies, they brought in scientists from the cigarette companies to make food more addictive. They used their science, their witchcraft, to make food more addictive. And that's why a large populace of Americans are obese, have diabetes, gout, and all heart disease, especially in our communities. So today we're going to piggyback off that and as well as off Bishop class, because he was going into a lot of this last night. And we're going to pull up that first link. It says the history of magic, because somebody out there, they don't believe. I don't think science and magic are the same thing. Pull that up. Wikipedia, history of magic. All you got to do sometimes is just Google. Google, Wikipedia. You got all these tools at your fingertips. Scroll down. Come on. All right, so this is the history of magic. Go down, scroll down, scroll down. Can you read that?
All right. The history of magic extends from the earliest literate cultures who relied on charms, divination, and spells to interpret and influence the forces of nature.
So it says they rely on these things to influence the forces of nature, change things from their natural course. Come on.
Even societies without written language left crafted artifacts, cave art, and monuments that have been interpreted as having magical purpose. Magic and what would later be called science.
What did it say?
Magic and what would later be called science.
So this was right on Wikipedia, the history of magic. Magic, and which he tried to separate science from magic, but the white man's science is magic. Because when you read about in the Bible, we had science. Like you read, what's that, Wisdom of Solomon 7? You know what I want? 7 and 17. Read that.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7 and verse 17.
Start at verse 15. Come on.
Verse 15. God have granted me to speak as I would, and to conceive as is meet for the things that are given me.
So he gave him the power to conceive, meaning to think deeply upon the things that were surrounding him, Solomon, right? Because he was the wisest man that lived, right?
Because it is he that leadeth unto wisdom.
Come on.
And directeth the wise. For in his hand are both we and our words, all wisdom also, and knowledge of workmanship. Mm-hmm. For he have given me certain knowledge of the things that are, namely, to know how the world was made.
So he gave Solomon the understanding on a deep level on how the world was created. Read.
And the operation of the elements.
The operation of the elements, like you have in science today, the periodic table. Solomon knew that thing on a God level. He knew about the elements on a God level. Read.
The beginning, ending, and midst of the times.
Yep.
The alterations.
So, like you see in a lot of science fiction, they have time travel. They have time travel. Like, what's that movie? From back in the day, you old. You know what I'm talking about. Back to the Future. Yeah, is that what called Back to the Future where they get in the car? Yep. Yeah. The scientist created a time machine. He was able to get in there and go back in time, right? But he's saying Solomon had an understanding. He had an understanding of time that was way superior than what the white man got. Meaning, this understanding was not witchcraft. This was the spirit of wisdom, right? Read on.
The beginning, ending, and midst of the times.
Come on.
The alterations of the turnings of the sun and the change of seasons. Uh-huh. The circuits of years and the positions of stars.
Right.
The nature.
So that's going into astrology, right? But read on.
The natures of living creatures.
Uh-huh. So he understood the animals. Read.
And the furies of wild beasts. Uh-huh. The violence of winds. And the reasonings of men.
Like you got those storm, you got the white man, he goes chasing storms. Solomon was given understanding of the storm. He didn't have to chase no storms. You know? Read on.
The diversities of plants and the virtues of roots.
They call that biology. Solomon was given the understanding and wisdom of how to use these things on a God level. Read.
And all such things as are either secret or manifest, them I know.
Now, but the white man, on the other hand, let's go to Sirach 13. 13 and 3. He takes those same things and he creates witchcraft. He tries to manipulate them and he tries to play God. Instead of using them for the right course of action, he uses them for evil, right? Read 13 and what I want?
3.
Yep.
Sirach chapter 13 and verse 3.
Read it out. That's not what I want. I want Sirach 33 and 13.
Okay. Sirach chapter 33 and verse 13.
Let me look. Hold on. No, I want verse 14. Come on.
Sirach chapter 33 and verse 14.
Come on.
Good is set against evil. That's what you want?
Yep.
Good is set against evil.
Come on.
And life against death.
Come on.
So is the godly against the sinner.
So you have good and you have evil, right? And they always set against each other. Read verse 15.
Verse 15. So look upon all the works of the Most High.
When you look on the earth and you look at everything God created, what do you see? Come on.
And there are two and two, one against another.
There's an evil way the white man uses things, such as herbs, the understanding of plants. And there's a righteous way to use it. Like Solomon said, he understood plants. He understood the positions of the stars. He understood all these things, and he understood them through wisdom. But the white man, he takes those same things that the Lord created, and he creates witchcraft out of them. So go back to that article. Come on.
Magic and what would later be called science.
Hold on, because there's a delay on the screen. All right, there we go. Come on.
Magic and what would later be called science were often practiced together.
Come on.
With the notable examples of astrology and alchemy before the scientific revolution of the late European Renaissance.
Of the what?
The late European Renaissance.
Now, to notice, this same European Renaissance is the Renaissance that's when the color of Christ was changed. The same time period in which all the disciples, which was called iconoclasm. When iconoclasm was in full effect, this was also known as the scientific revolution at the late Renaissance. This is when science, when they started to use the white man's witchcraft, and they started to call it science. These are science advancements, a science revolution in the same time period when we was being, when our history was being whitewashed and our people was being afflicted. Come on.
Before the scientific revolution of the late European Renaissance moved to separate science from magic on the basis of repeatable observation. Despite this loss of prestige, the use of magic has continued both in its traditional role and among modern occultists who seek to adapt it for a scientific world.
So it's telling you plainly where the white man got his science from. In the European Renaissance, it was the same time period in which Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, Michelangelo, they painted all of these white images of Christ. Where the white man came into power, this is when they had their scientific revolution. Now, go to the next definition, right? Because a lot of these different drugs, which they call today, they call them pharmaceuticals, right? Where does that term pharmaceuticals come from, right? And it's gonna go deep into our class, but we're gonna get to the book that I was going into, that which it shows how it affects us. Come on.
What is the original meaning of pharmakia? Witchcraft. Pharmakia in the Bible. The Greek word pharmakia frequently translated as witchcraft or sorcery, and other variants thereof, such as pharmakon and pharmakos, appear several times in the Old Testament and 5 times in the New Testament.
So we're going to read those, right? So this pharmakia, which translate to witchcraft or sorcery. Pharmakia were these pharmaceuticals, like you have these large pharmaceutical companies. A lot of these things were patented in the 1700s, the 1600s, which they call the late Renaissance. So this is the end of the Renaissance era, right? The 1500s, the end of the Renaissance, right? Because it started in the 1400s, right? So let's read. We're going to go to those different spots in the Bible. Go to Isaiah 47:1 first. Now, hold on, let me get it. This is a new Bible. I'm a little slow on the draw with this one. Okay, 47 verse 1. Come on.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 1.
Read.
Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon.
This is the same harlot that it was stated in Nahum, who was, what did they call her? Her well-favored harlot with the multitude of her witchcraft. This is the same Babylon, daughter of Babylon. Let's see exactly who that is first. We're going to come back to this. Go to Psalms 37. Who is this daughter of Babylon? Who is this daughter of Babylon? Because somebody right now, that's talking about Iraq. Shut up. You don't know what the hell you're talking about.
You better shut your black lips.
Shut your black lips. Come on.
Psalms chapter 137 and verse 7.
Read.
Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom.
Of who?
Of Edom.
For those who don't know, or for those who don't believe, the white man, the so-called Caucasian, Caucasoid, that is Edom of the Bible.
That's right.
His biblical name is Edom. Read.
The children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem.
Read.
Who said, race it, even to the foundation thereof.
Come on.
O daughter of Babylon.
So who's the daughter of Babylon? Edom. Edom, the so-called white man. It's not talking about the Arabs over in Iraq who are getting bombed to death.
Right.
It's not talking about what's the brother what's the Iraqi name they went to war with? Saddam Hussein. It's not talking about Hussein. Shut up. Come on. Let's go back. Isaiah 47.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 1.
Come on.
Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon.
Read.
Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans.
Come on.
For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate.
Yo, shall no more be called tender and delicate. Why? Because America in particular, they paint themselves to be such a loving and free country. They paint themselves as if they are a delicate country. But really they're ruthless and evil. Jump up to verse 9.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 9.
Come on.
But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children.
This is going to be the day that this place is judged with nuclear fire. The same chemist who created all these bombs, they're going to be burnt up with them. Read on.
That's right.
The loss of children and widowhood, they shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries.
For what?
For the multitude of thy sorceries.
God said he's going to judge them for the multitude of their sorceries. Their sorceries going into not only their media, which is a form of sorcery, not only the weapons that they create, which is a form of sorcery, but because of the drugs they infected people with as well. Come on.
And for the great abundance of thine enchantments.
These enchantments, right? We're going to go a little deeper. Go to Exodus 7 and show how prior to what they call the scientific revolution, all this stuff that they use, the white man is using, was known as witchcraft. We're going to show it. Exodus 7, verse 10.
Exodus chapter 7 and verse 10.
Come on.
And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh.
So, remember we said in Sirach 33 it stated that good is set against evil. So now, Moses, with the Spirit of the Lord, goes forth to challenge Pharaoh in Pharaoh's home. Pharaoh sends out his witches, which today we would call them his scientists, right? Come on.
And they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent.
So his staff became a serpent using the power of God, right? Listen to this next part.
Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers.
And the what?
And the sorcerers.
So it says the wise men and the sorcerers. So these would be your most astute people in the land. Today, the president, which in the time of Egypt, he was known as a pharaoh, right? They didn't have kings. The king of Egypt was known as Pharaoh, right? Today we have a president, right? But all his advisors, which go down to his health care, his weapons, his top generals, his ministers of defense, the food administration, the drugs, the FDA, all these different companies, they sit top so-called wise men and sorcerers. Right? That's a key part, right? Listen to the next part, read.
Now the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments.
They did what?
They also did in like manner with their enchantments.
The Egyptians in Egypt, the magicians in Egypt were able to replicate the power of God. They tried to do a replica of what God gave Moses to do with their science. Read on.
For they cast down every man his rod.
Come on.
And they became serpents.
And they used this with their witchcraft. Come on.
But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods, and he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them.
Now jump up to verse 20.
Exodus chapter 7 and verse 20.
Come on.
And Moses and Aaron did so, as the Lord commanded. And he lifted up the rod, and smote the waters that were in the river, in the sight of Pharaoh, and in the sight of his servants. And all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood.
So with the Spirit of the Lord, God gave Aaron and Moses the power to turn the water into blood, right? But listen to what the Egyptian scientists, magicians, and I keep using this word scientists for a reason, because when we get down to the development of crack cocaine, you're going to realize that these witches, these sorcerers created it, right? And to manipulate our mind. All of these psychedelics that's on the street today, which got a lot of our people bugged out, was created by these magicians. Come on.
Right. And the fish that was in the river died, and the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river. And there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments.
So they did the same thing with their enchantments. Look, they poured potions together. Look, we can do the same thing. Come on.
And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, neither did he hearken unto them.
So Pharaoh's mind was hardened. Why? Because Pharaoh thought he was a god. He thought he was surrounded by all these Egyptians. He thought he was on a whole nother level. But the Lord humbled him. The same way he's going to do Mystery Babylon, he's going to humble Babylon and destroy it. The same way he did Pharaoh. Come on, let's jump to Exodus 8 and verse 7.
Exodus chapter 8 and verse 7. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt.
Come on.
Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron, and said, Entreat the Lord, that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifice unto the Lord.
So the magicians was able to make frogs come up as well. They was able to do the same thing. And now jump up to 18. I'm just giving examples of what the magicians was able to do back in the time of Egypt versus what they're doing today. Right now, they on a whole nother level. They able to manipulate the masses with their science. We're going to go into it. They're able to destroy whole communities with their science, right? Go to 18.
Exodus chapter 8 and verse 18.
Come on.
And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there were lice upon man and upon beast.
So they was limited with their science. They couldn't, when the Lord got to bring them plagues on them, they said, we can't do that. They was limited with their science. Go to Exodus 22, verse 18.
Exodus chapter 22 and verse 18.
Come on.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
Yep.
Whosoever lieth.
Now read that again.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
So prior to the scientific revolution, it was a crime for you to practice witchcraft. They had things such as the Salem witch hunt. They had such things where they was burning people for practicing the creations of a lot of these different drugs and stuff. Now, when you get to the scientific revolution, what they did was they tried to remove the stigma related to science and separate it from magic. But it's still the same thing. We're going to further prove that. Give me the next link. Yep. No, not that one. I skipped that one. Where it say pharmakia is chemistry. It might be a picture. Nah, let me click the link. There you go. There you go. Look, read that right there.
What is pharmakia in the Bible? Ancient Greeks used words like pharmakia to refer to that entire spectrum, from medicines to psychoactives to poisons. This makes cultural and...
Open it up so we can see that. Damn. My eyes, bro. Try to take my eyes out with that, bro. Scroll down. Where was we at? Scroll down. Scroll down. Scroll down. Scroll down. Where the part where it say what is pharmakia in the Bible? Go back up. All right, let me see. All right, let's just read that.
The Greek word pharmakia appears in Galatians chapters 5 and verse 20 and Revelations chapter 18 and verse 23. Terms from the same root word appear in Revelations chapter 9 and 21, Revelation 21 and 8, and Revelation 22 and verse 15. These are typically translated into English as sorcery, witchcraft, or sorcerer. Ancient Greek uses of pharmakia closely mirror the generic modern English word drugs. The same Greek root word produce English terms such as pharmacy or pharmacist.
Mm-hmm. Now go down to that modern.
Modern use of the word sorcery evokes images of supernatural power and spells. Biblical use of pharmakia doesn't fit well with such ideas. Rather, the term suggests various forms of drug abuse.
Of what?
Of drug abuse.
Come on.
Those might include drug use in pagan worship.
So they get high and they worship white Jesus. They get high and they worship Ishtar. They get high. Why do you think on most of these wicked days, high evil days, most of the time you go out with your family, or you was out with your family, and then you got a group of young people, they leave out, they getting high, you got adults in the upstairs getting high, and they come down and they just eat a big feast. Getting high and they worshiping pagan, with use of pagan worship. Come on.
Those might include drug use in pagan worship as an addiction or as a poison used to manipulate and control others.
Now, that's good. As a poison used to manipulate and control others. Get that next link. Because these drugs that they got on the streets right now is used to control the mind of our people. Come on.
Cocaine is a white powder.
No, where you read from?
Okay.
No, it's a picture where it say the Greek word is the original word for chemistry. You see that? Yeah, that right there.
The Greek word chemia is the origin of the word chemistry and means cast together or pour together. Mm-hmm. It is also the basis for the Latin words for chemistry.
Now note that Greek word kia. Now read that next part.
The word chemia may also be related to the ancient Egyptian name for Egypt.
For what?
the ancient Egyptian name for Egypt,
which is
Kim or Kim.
So we know Kemet, which Kim, what they call Kemet today, you know, unlearned black people, they call it Kemet today. Come on.
which means blackness.
Uh-huh.
This could mean that alchemy is the Egyptian art or the black art.
No, and now you see how it's stated alchemy. It's still trying to separate. No, chemistry is the ancient Egyptian art or black art. That's the same thing we just read. We just proving it based now off the article, but we just read it in the Bible. That is what they was using in Egypt to manipulate things on the molecular level. Say that word again.
Molecular level.
That brother smart right there. That's how they was able to turn water into blood, not with the power of God, but they used what we refer to today as chemistry.
Right.
Now, let's pull up the book now. Pull up the title page first. And forgive me if it's no, not that. The title page. There we go. Okay. I think it's a lag from my screen and the brothers back there. So bear with us. So read that title.
When crack was king.
So this is the book that inspired me to write this class. And it shows how crack cocaine affected our neighborhoods. We're going to go into this book. Let's start with the first page that we got there, where it say the Washington Post.
Washington Post columnist Charles.
Can you blow it up a little bit? All right, yeah.
Washington Post columnist Charles Krauthammer wrote in a 1989 column, "The inner city crack epidemic
Read the whole thing.
is now giving birth to the newest horror, a bio underclass, a generation of physically damaged cocaine babies whose biological inferiority is stamped at birth." Later in the column, Krauthammer quoted family policy expert Douglas Besheroff as saying, "This is not stuff that Head Start can fix. This is permanent brain damage. Whether it is 5% or 15% of the black community, it is there."
So now, what they was stating, they was doing these different studies, and they was saying that they had an epidemic from children who was born of crack users. And they were saying these children, they call them crack babies, they would have permanent brain damage. Why? That is what they initial thought was when they created the thing, was to attack our children, right? So they came out with these studies saying that these kids are going to be brain dead. These kids will not fit in society. These kids, they use this as a basis to up police in our community, because they said these kids will be unfit, unsuitable to be able to have productive lives. Like they was already destined from a baby to have destructive lives because they was born of crack, of mothers or fathers who was addicted to crack, right? This is the same thing they did in Egypt. Go to Exodus. Verse 1, Exodus chapter 1. And we're going to read the part with the midwives.
Exodus chapter 1 and
15?
verse 15. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives,
Come on.
of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live.
Now, they was putting this information into the minds of our people, while at the same time, Planned Parenthood was on a rise. They was putting this stuff into the mind of our people. Oh, your child, he's going to be affected negatively. They was trying to put it into our mind of our people to kill our own babies. Right? Now, we're going to go further and prove that these scientific studies that they did was a whole lie. Right? Go ahead. Read the next part of that book. The same way in Egypt, they tried to attack our children. Why? Because they wanted to prevent a rise, like J. Edgar Hoover stated. He wanted to prevent the rise of another black Messiah. Read that.
Of crack babies, Krauthammer decided theirs will be a life of certain suffering, of probable deviance, of permanent inferiority.
What did it say?
Of permanent inferiority.
The white man said that because he was born, these children was born in this bio underclass, as he called it, they would be born with a permanent inferiority. This is what the white man wrote in his papers. So a lot of these people, they was published these papers, and they seen what they call their people to always see us as a permanent inferiority. A permanent. This inferiority that is in our community would be permanent. Come on.
At best, a menial life of severe deprivation. The dead babies may be the lucky ones.
This is what he wrote. The dead babies may be the lucky ones. Why? Because this is what they wanted to do. This is the same attributes that America has. They got it from Egypt, from their science, from the attack of Israel's children. These same attributes they got. Give me that Revelations 11. Just to prove it. And I got a lot of stuff here. We running out of time. Yep, you know it.
Revelations chapter 11 and verse 8.
Come on.
And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt.
Now this is referring to Babylon, the great. That great city is the same Babylon we read in Nahum 3 and 4. Same Babylon we read in Isaiah 47. Mystery Babylon. It's not talking about Iraq for you dumb apologetics.
Right.
Yes, I said apologetics. So apologize to us because you don't know what the hell the Bible talking about. It's not talking about, it's talking about America. It has the same attributes as Sodom and Egypt. In Egypt, they consistently tried to attack the babies of Israel. They had the Israelites in bondage. They dealt with witchcraft on a high level. And that's what we're going to go into. Come on, let's go. Now, the crack epidemic, this crack cocaine, was pushed out by scientists. We're going to go into that as well, on how all these different scientists, these white scientists, they patent these drugs that destroyed our neighborhoods. Come on, let's get to that next part of the book. Because ever since I was growing up, I always heard the term crack baby. Oh, you a crack baby. You heard that, right?
Uh-huh.
You wasn't called that, was you?
No.
Oh, praises. All praises, you know? But some of us, they called us crack babies when we was in school. Oh, you crack baby? Where did this term come from? The white man created this term, right? Why? Because his goal was try to get black women to abort their children back then. That was his initial goal, as well as to put a stigma on the black community that we was, what did it say? Permanently inferior. So we wouldn't be able to have the best jobs. Why? Because, he was born a crack baby. We wouldn't be able to do anything successful in life. Why? He was born a crack baby. He's permanently inferior. That's why they come up with these stigmas. Listen, they found out that it was all a lie. Read that highlighted portion.
The myth of the crack baby was widely accepted as gospel, it seems, because it maps so well onto existing ideas of black biological inferiority.
The existing ideas was these scientists, they came up with these different papers saying that black people was inferior to white people. Like Bishop brought it up, the medical apartheid. They would practice on our women and our men, saying we didn't experience pain the same way white people experience pain. They came up with a lot of different papers. These scientists, they did a lot of different research looking for differences between them and us. And all the differences, they tried to make it as we was inferior. But in fact, we are superior. our differences make us superior to them, but they tried to state that we was inferior, and it was already existing biological studies that the white man had published saying that. So now they came up with this study, and they said this crack baby thing is a biological, and is make them inferior, and they just built on the existing idea. So come on, read it again.
The myth of the crack baby was widely accepted as gospel.
Come on.
It seems because it maps so well onto existing ideas of black biological inferiority and cultural pathology. And it stoked anxieties regarding violent crime and the cost of America's social safety net.
So now they use this same thing to say, see, this is why they're violent. This is why they're killers. This is why they're thugs. This is why they're gangbangers. Now, they publish this throughout the media. There was news. There was news. What they call them? News are not articles, but publishings on the news about how crack cocaine was making our people more violent, making us criminals. Right? Come on.
Indeed, in the form of the crack baby, America was delivered a perfect symbol for its animosity toward black America.
So white people was given a reason, because they already had hatred for us. They didn't have a reason though. They didn't have a reason. We just dress better than them. We look better than them. We smell better than them. We jump higher than them. So they just hate us. They have a perpetual hatred. Can you find me that? Is that Ezekiel, right? Find me that. Perpetual hatred. They was looking for scientific evidence to substantiate their perpetual hatred that they had for our people. I think it's Ezekiel
35.
Yeah, 35.
Ezekiel chapter 35 and verse
5.
Verse 5. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity.
So the time of our calamity is when we went through slavery, read.
In the time that their iniquity had an end.
The time that our iniquity had end is when we got out of slavery. You had the Jim Crow South. You had the Night Riders. You had all these different things that afflicted us. You also had the crack era. They was looking for reasons, ways to afflict us because they had a perpetual hatred. So they dropped drugs in our community. They used different agencies, which now Trump, he trying to destroy all these government agencies. But they used in the 80s, the 70s, the FBI, the CIA, they was invested in destroying Israel. And they was invested in creating a way to substantiate their hatred that they have for us, their perpetual hatred. Go back to the article. Come on.
Indeed, in the form of the crack baby.
Now, jump up back to where it says black biology. Start because it maps so well.
Because it maps so well onto existing ideas of black biological inferiority and cultural pathology. And it stoked anxieties regarding violent crime and the cost of America's social safety net. Indeed, in the form of the crack baby, America was delivered a perfect symbol for its animosity toward black America.
Come on.
A ticking time bomb of violence and expense created because black mothers cared too little about themselves and their offspring.
Now jump down. So basically, they said these babies are destined to be violent criminals that will be that would destroy a society, and that's how they treated us. Come on.
I have come to understand the persistence of the residue as a byproduct of what theorists call transgenerational trauma and post-memory. Transgenerational trauma or intergenerational trauma is a psychological term for trauma that is transferred between generations.
Come on, read it. Keep reading.
After a first generation of survivors experiences trauma, they are able to transfer their trauma to their children and future generations of offspring via complex mechanisms.
So, this is what I was stating earlier about how we do not realize how these things affected us today. The decisions that we make, the reluctantness to build together, it came from the crack era. Because prior to the crack era, where like you read this author in his book, he gives testimony about how black people used to do things called rent parties. When somebody was low on the rent, they would have a party. They would all pitch in. Everybody got to pay to enter. And they would have a party, have a good old time, and they would pay a brother rent. Because there was a sense of community. They said, this brother, they need this for their mortgage. They need this for their rent. Let's get together. Let's put our money together and do this for the brother. But after the crack era, they had terms like the crackhead. They had terms, you was more reluctant to let your children stay the night at your neighbor's house. There was no more sense of community after the crack hit. Why? Because it was so devastating that it made black people distrust each other. We no longer trusted each other after this, where this thing hit. And it's generationally passed down. It's still now even in the streets today. In America today, black people still don't trust each other. Since this time period, black people have not really been able to build things as Black Wall Street. Until the Israelites hit the scene, there was no new movements that was building on a national and global level like you seen in the 60s. Why? Because these drugs brought down this generational trauma that been destroying our communities. This era, this brought psychological turmoil on our people that we just don't even realize. Let's go to the next part. It say the nightmare. That's the book. It's a nightmare. We're gonna start on April 4th. Yep.
On April 4, 1968, less than a month after the Kerner Commission report and only 5 years after his transcendent I Have a Dream speech, King was assassinated.
So now speaking about the end of the turbulent 60s and the death of Martin Luther King, all right? Come on.
He was shot in broad daylight.
And I encourage you to go watch Bishop Yawusap's class that he did yesterday. He brought out some of this. He brought out some of this in the imagery and how destructive this was on our people, right? But look at this. Come on, read a little faster because we got a lot.
He was shot in broad daylight on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. Mm-hmm. A sniper's bullet entered the 39-year-old's right cheek, breaking his jaw and several vertebrae as it traveled down his spinal cord, severing his jugular vein and major arteries before lodging in his shoulder. He was killed almost instantly.
Now, there have been reports that I've read that he didn't actually die from the gunshot, but he was killed by the doctors in the hospital. It was a white man. He came out with a report on it. And I think they did a lawsuit and won the lawsuit that he was actually suffocated by one of the doctors. They didn't give him treatment, all right? But let's continue.
There may be no better symbol for America's relationship to its black citizens than King, the most widely respected member of the race, sprawled on a motel balcony in a pool of his own blood. He died a senseless and sudden death, one devoid of dignity, a black death. Between the evening of April 4th, the day King was assassinated, and Easter Sunday, April 14th, 1968, more than 100 cities across 36 states and the District of Columbia rioted.
So there was riots for 10 days straight because of what happened. You know, they stopped rioting because of Easter Sunday. That's crazy. And I ain't even peeped that the first time I read through. Come on.
Combined, 43 men and women were killed. Approximately 3,500 were injured, and 27,000 were arrested.
So you got to think about it. We had just been through so much with slavery. We get out, and now you got segregation. You have a man by the name of Martin Luther King who tries to plead with the sympathy on the heartstrings of white America. And he was a very well-spoken orator. And he was able to show white people our plot and do it in a way in which he didn't cause uproar or violence. He did it in a non-violent way, and they shot this man dead. This caused black people to be upset on a high level. Why? Because this man who told us not to hurt y'all kill him, what would y'all do to us? So now black people is disgusted, they angered, and they riot. We rioted as the tribe of Judah. We rioted. The tribe of Judah was in full effect, rioting through all America. So come on.
54 cities suffered at least 100,000 in property damage, with D.C. and Baltimore topping the list at approximately $15 million and $12 million in damage, respectively. Experts called it the greatest wave of social unrest since the Civil War. Not until over 58,000 National Guardsmen and Army troops joined local, state, and police forces did the uprising cease.
Now, this is the same thing you read about in Exodus. So this struck fear in the heart of white America. Read Exodus chapter 1 and verse 9.
Exodus chapter 1 and verse 9.
Start verse 8.
Verse 8.
No, start verse 7.
Verse 7.
Come on.
And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us.
So now, because of these riots, they had in their mindset, damn, all the stuff that we did to these people, they gonna come against us. What they called it? They call it white guilt, right? They had this guilt. They had a guilty conscience, and they just knew that they said our time might be up. We got to do something about this. What did they do? Read that last paragraph of the book. Yeah.
The event is
let's read the second to last.
Okay.
First, experts called
it the greatest wave of social unrest since the Civil War. Not until over 58,000 National Guardsmen and Army troops joined local, state, and police forces did the uprising cease, wrote historian Peter B. Levy in his 2018 book, The Great Uprising.
Come on.
Race riots in urban America during the 1960s. The event is not well remembered in the American consciousness. It does not fit easily into the narrative of a triumphant civil rights movement that erased the country's racism.
So what that mean? They don't teach it in school. Right. You didn't learn about how black people rioted for 10 days because of the death of Martin Luther King. Why? They erased that thing. They don't want nobody to know that. They had to call the National Guard. They had to call all the police forces in all these different major cities to stop this riot that was all throughout America. They said it was the biggest uproar since the Civil War, which was a massive war. That's it was the biggest, but you don't never hear about this on Black History Month. You don't hear about this during Black History Month, except for from the Israelites. That's right. I ain't gonna know that's right, but it's all right.
That's right.
Oh yeah, now you here. Okay. He's alone back there, so we gonna have mercy on him. Come on.
In fact, it points to the contrary. The Holy Week Uprising, as it's called, suggests that black Americans were so incensed by King's assassination, by what is represented, that news of it spurred a violent insurrection.
So now, because of this, white people said, we have to do something. So let me show you what they did. But they said this uprising was so big because of the death of Martin Luther King, they said they was in fear that we would take over the country. So what did they do? Read that next page where it says Nixon. Come on.
The Nixon administration did not
That
require.
does not say administration. Oh, start from the top. My bad.
Okay. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies: the anti-war left and black people.
What did he say?
The anti-war left and black people.
Nixon ran with two enemies: black people and the anti-war, which it sounds similar to what Trump doing. Trump, he got into office saying he was going to put to rest all the wars over there. He going to stop the war in Russia. He going to stop the war in the Middle East. And he going to kick out all the so-called Hispanics. He going to kick out the Northern Kingdom. He went to war with the Northern Kingdom, right? But Nixon, he went to war with Judah and the people who was against the war. Come on.
Ehrlichman told Harper's writer Dan Baum, "We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or blacks. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news."
Do you hear that? They whole campaign with this war on drugs was, like they stated, to disrupt those communities, to arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, vilify them night after night on the evening news. That's what they did with this so-called war on drugs, after they had dropped the drugs in our community. Come on.
Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did.
That's crazy. The white man is the devil the Bible speaks of.
That's right.
He's the damn devil. Come on. Let's read faster because we run out of time.
The Nixon administration did not require evidence that drug use was linked to rising crime, however, and it did not need to prove to the American public that doped up blacks were responsible for that crime.
Give me that in, what is that, Micah 2? About devising evil? Because that's exactly what they did. This is exactly what they did. And it just further proves that the Bible is a true book. Micah 2 and verse 1. Come on.
Micah chapter 2 and verse 1.
Come on.
Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their bed.
They sit around thinking of different ways to disrupt their communities, to arrest their leaders, to raid their homes, to break up their meetings and vilify them night after night on the evening news. That's what the white man did. Come on.
When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand.
Why? Because people sit in positions of power on the government, in the law enforcement agencies. They was able to enact this violence and get away with it. And did they know it was wrong? Of course they did. Come on, let's go back.
The Nixon administration did not require evidence that drug use was linked to rising crime, however, and it did not need to prove to the American public that doped up blacks were responsible for that crime. It had two facts. Drug use was up, and so was violent crime in the big cities. Americans would fill in the blank using the same brutal imagination they always had to rationalize a war on drugs targeting black Americans. Alongside its war on drugs, the Nixon administration was engaged in an all-out offensive on black political leadership.
How so?
The FBI had been surveilling, threatening, and attempting to discredit black leaders since as early as 1956 as part of its counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO. The FBI sank to new lows under Nixon, however, with its efforts to destroy the Black Panther Party and, according to a Bureau memo, prevent the rise of a black messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement.
That's what they was in fear of, the unification of our people on a national level. So he said the FBI sunk to new lows. The FBI was lower than low when dealing with King and Malcolm. They sent letters to Martin Luther King telling him he should commit suicide. They tried to create turmoil in the houses of Martin Luther King and attack their wives mentally. They spied on all their calls. They influenced people around them to start to hate them. But it said they sunk to all new lows when it came to the Black Panther Party. When it came to all them brothers standing up, militant together, they sunk to new lows. They did even worse than they did with King and Malcolm. Come on.
Hoover had declared the Panthers the greatest threat to the internal security of the country in 1968. In the years that followed, the group became the primary focus of COINTELPRO, with the FBI employing surveillance, informants, psychological warfare, legal threats, smear campaigns, and violence in an attempt to neutralize the Panthers. The organization, its chapters and leaders, were the target of an estimated 233 authorized actions.
So 233 authorized, and this is what they tell you about, because of course they're not going to reveal the real number. They was attacked by these so-called white people 233 times. Come on.
According to a later report on COINTELPRO by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence Activities.
Come on.
By the end of 1969, 5 leaders within the Black Panther Party.
They talk about that trial that they was on. But let's read this next part real fast. South Central.
South Central provided decent paying jobs for men at nearby factories and unionized service jobs for women downtown.
Because most of these cities in which the crack era hit, they was thriving black communities. And that's why it was so pivotal for them to go in there. And no longer did they have to drop bombs like they did in Tulsa. What they did was they dropped crack cocaine, heroin in the cities like L.A., Detroit, New York, Atlanta. These different cities that was affected, D.C., Baltimore. All these cities that was affected in the crack era, they was thriving cities prior to crack getting there. Black people were starting to come up. The tribe of Judah was starting to come up financially and together, a sense of community. Read that.
There were also modest but well-built bungalows abandoned by whites who fled South Central for other parts of Los Angeles when the blacks moved in. But South Central was changing rapidly. Many of the good factory jobs that so many came to Los Angeles for were quietly moving out of the city.
So this is what they did. They started to move all the jobs out. It's called white flight. They moved all the jobs out and they created a poor environment. So these cities was thriving at first, then they moved it and it caused economic hardship before they dropped the drug. Because they knew if you have poverty, then you will have crime. That's what the scriptures say. Go to Proverbs 30. That's what I want, right? I think shoot from the hip. Proverbs 30. I'm saying verse 8.
Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 8. Remove far from me vanity and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me, lest I be full and deny thee, and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal, and take the name of my God in vain.
Which, that's exactly what the white man understood. If we become poor, we will turn to crime to feed ourselves. We will have to steal. We will turn to sin. We become a people who is more acceptable for sin. Is that the word? Susceptible to sin if we are impoverished. So what did they did? They used white flight. They took all the major businesses out of the city. And you've seen that in the 60s. Come on. Yeah, the book.
But South Central was changing rapidly. Many of the good factory jobs that so many came to Los Angeles were quietly moving out of the city. People blame the Watts riots in 1965, but in truth, the trend began much earlier. Between 1963 and 1964, 28 industrial manufacturing firms left South Central and parts of East LA.
So a lot of people, which I heard that as well, is during the riots, we destroyed our own neighborhoods. We destroyed our own jobs. We destroyed our own businesses. But the book is telling you these businesses was leaving before the riots. You know, it was a trend that was already happening throughout the country. It wasn't just in South Central LA. It was just devastating there, but it was all throughout the country where these different companies was leaving. Come on.
4 metal shops, 8 furniture factories, 1 electrical machinery factory, 1 food processing plant, 4 textile plants, and 2 oil refineries. These were jobs that sustained the local black community. They made the difference between a black working class neighborhood and a ghetto. By 1965, South Los Angeles, which was more than 80% black, had unemployment rates double those of greater Los Angeles and the entire state of California.
So read that again.
By 1965, South Los Angeles, which was more than 80% black, had unemployment rates double those of greater Los Angeles and the entire state of California.
The entire state of California did not have unemployment as high as in this city of Los Angeles. Why? It was targeted. Come on.
1 in 10 adults in South LA was out of work. In 1970, the year Lenin started kindergarten, a quarter of black Los Angeles lived below the poverty line.
Come on, read the next part.
Folks got desperate, and from that desperation, scroll down.
South Central emergence.
A new South Central emerged.
Because of the desperation of poverty, a new South Central emerged. Come on.
Full of gangbangers, hustlers, and pimps who moved from the margins of the community to the center.
Because why? Because they had these drugs now that they felt they could get money from. Go to that Proverbs 10 in verse 15. Proverbs 10 and 15.
Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 15.
Come on.
The rich man's wealth is his strong city. The destruction of the poor is their poverty.
This is how they weaponized these drugs in our communities. First, they took all the jobs out and created poverty. They created poverty. Then they said, take these drugs, because they didn't know the devastating effect that they would have on a community. But you know who did? These white scientists that created them. These white scientists that created them, which I only have 8 minutes here. I was going to go through a list of these so-called white scientists that have patents for a lot of these modern drugs that brothers take today. But I don't think I'm going to get to that. Let's go to Proverbs 23. 23 and 21.
Proverbs
move fast, too.
chapter 23 and verse 21.
Come on.
For the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags.
So it say the drunken, that person who is always under the influence, shall come to poverty, and the drowsiness shall be clothes of a man's rag. So they knew exactly what they was doing in the communities when they took all these different jobs out. They created poverty, and they hit us with drugs. They knew it would bring our communities to rags. Come on. Proverbs 31 and 7. Did I read that already? I think I read that already. 31. Let's read the next article. Come on. We got to go faster.
Okay. Folks.
It says cocaine. From the History Channel. Click that one. No, the one above that. Definition. Come on. Yeah, let's go. Is that it? That ain't what I sent you. It's a link. It's above the one that says CIA involvement. No, I say the History Channel, bro. I'm about to resend it to you, bro. Thank you, Ithiel. Appreciate you, man. Thank you, IT. I don't know why it didn't come out as a link. Hold on. That one. Click that one. Hold on, I'm about to resend it. All right, hit that one right there. I just sent it to you. I don't know why you ain't having it, but come on, you slowing this down, IT. But while we waiting on IT, go to Proverbs, 1 Peter 5 and 8. You know, that's why we had instructions out of these scriptures. How to deal with this spiritual warfare that we constantly attacked with. 1 Peter 5 and 8.
1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8.
Come on.
Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour.
We don't even realize how deep that scripture goes right there. It says our adversary, the devil, walk about seeking whom he devour. He's coming up with different ways, just like we read in the book, on how to disrupt our communities, on how to vilify our leaders. That's why we have to be sober-minded. We can't get caught up in these different drugs. Even ones you might think crack cocaine is a heavy drug. You know, I don't smoke crack. I just smoke a little weed. I just smoke cigarettes. It's to have the same effect on your mindset. Why the enemy, you are easily acceptable to the enemy's will when you are divulging in these different drugs. You got that? Come on, let's get that.
Cocaine is a stimulant drug.
Why it look like that? Was it something on the side or something? Go to the paragraph, say crack cocaine. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Right there.
Crack cocaine. Crack cocaine, a crystallized form of the drug, became popular in the 1980s. According to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, the price of illegal cocaine dropped by as much as 80% during the late 1970s as a glut of the white powder flooded the U.S. market. Dealers looking for new ways to sell their products turned to crack. Crack could be produced by dissolving powdered cocaine in a mixture of water and ammonia and boiling it down until a solid formed.
All right, jump to 1980s crack epidemic. Jump down. Right there.
The 1980s crack epidemic. Crack usage began to surge in the 1980s. Between 1985 and 1989, the number of regular cocaine users jumped from 4.2 million to 5.8 million people. Around the same time, crime in some major cities spiked. A 1988 study by the Bureau of Justice Statistics found that crack use was tied to 32% of all homicides and 60% of all drug-related homicides in New York City. Public concerns over illicit drug use had been building throughout the 1980s, and political tensions erupted as the nation entered a so-called crack epidemic.
Come on.
Cocaine laws. The Federal Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, part of the war on drugs.
So Nixon was the person who brought in the war on drugs, but he had his own evils that he was a part of, so he didn't get to finish carrying it out. The next two presidents actually carried it out. Come on.
Established a disparity between the amount of crack and powdered cocaine. Scroll down. Needed to trigger certain criminal penalties at a weight ratio of 100 to 1 and set a mandatory 5-year minimum sentence for any crack cocaine possession. For example, the same minimal penalty of 5 years was given for 1 gram of crack cocaine as for 100 grams of powdered cocaine.
So you would have to be, powdered cocaine is what they were selling, was basically a white drug. That's what white people was using. And then you had crack cocaine. People, if you got caught with any crack cocaine, you get 5 years. But if you could get caught with 100 grams of powder cocaine before you could get the equivalent. Why? Because America has an unjust balance. Like the scriptures say, what is that? Psalms 91 and 20. And we're not going to be able to finish this, unfortunately. Let's just go to the next link. While you get Psalms 91 and 20. or it might be 94 and 20. You give me that next link. The next one, yeah, CIA's involvement. Read that while I find the scripture. Read that right there.
CIA involvement in Contra cocaine trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
Got to scroll down. A number of writers have alleged that the United States Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, was involved in the Nicaraguan Contra's cocaine trafficking operations during the 1980s, Nicaraguan civil war, in efforts to finance the Contra group that was trying to topple the revolutionary Sandinista government.
So what the white man did was he just the same way he does in the Middle East, he had groups raise up to take down the government down over there, the revolutionary Sandinista government over there in Nicaragua, right? Meanwhile, he was taking all the drugs out of there and funding his different wars around the world while destroying the tribe of Judah. This is what he was doing. Now, it says alleged because they act as if this is a theory. This is what happened. This is what happened. The white man is a damn liar. Come on, read what you got.
These claims have led to investigations by the United States government, including hearings and reports by the United States House of Representatives, Senate, Department of Justice, and the CIA's Office of the Inspector General, which ultimately concluded the allegations were unsupported.
What they do? They concluded the allegations was unsupported. Go to Zechariah 11 and 5. And go read that. Zechariah 11 and 5. So they destroyed the communities. They went to war and they got rich off this drug called cocaine, while with their invested interest taking out our major leaders with these drug epidemics, with these different drugs. And then they said they was not guilty. Read what you got.
Zechariah chapter 11 and verse 5. Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty.
This is exactly what they did with they whole efforts, and they hid this thing. They hid this thing as they destroyed our communities and they disrupted our whole way of life. And they held themselves not guilty. Go to Psalms 94, verse 20. I should have made this a 2-hour class. I ain't realize it would be this much. Maybe I do a part 2, Lord's will, or praises. But the point being is that this class is to show how the white man, he deals with Satan on another level when it comes to this witchcraft, when it comes to this sorcery, when it comes to this chemistry. He's able to affect and disrupt whole communities through his witchcraft. And then on his media, he makes the victims become the perpetrator. Read what you got.
Psalms chapter 94 and verse 20.
Mm-hmm.
Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law?
This is exactly what they do. This is exactly what the white man has continuously done in our communities. So I hope this class was edifying. I didn't even get to finish half of the class, but I hope it was edifying. Lord's will. I don't know. I might not do a part 2. I might revamp it and bring out the other information on a different class. But as you see, the white man is the devil. I do want to bring one scripture just for those who may be listening for the first time. Go to Titus 2. Titus 2. Because the way that we can defeat this is by keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Not dealing with their drugs. I don't care what they tell you. I don't care. This vape is more natural. Is this? No. When you're dealing with the white man's psychedelics, it destroys you mentally. And I wanted to get to a part where it shows how a lot of times where they say these people who have these unclean spirits, they walk around talking to themselves. They have mental health issues. A lot of times it comes from marijuana. I was going to go into that. It comes from taking drugs. They say over 80% of these homeless people who are mentally ill it starts because they have took some type of form of drugs. And how we was going to go into how the witchcraft affected our people back then to where they had unclean spirits. But we weren't able to get to that. So we'll leave you with this. Read what you got.
Titus chapter 2 and verse 6. Young men, likewise, exhort to be sober-minded. In all things, showing thyself a pattern of good works.
So with that being said, we say, shalom, Most High in Christ bless. Keep a sober mind because we are at war. That being
That's
said,
right.
shalom.